So Noel Plum did a video not too long ago. I watch his content on regular basis, I should say. And he was doing an interesting exchange with some people that normally never want to talk to anyone, which is amazing to me that PZ Myers, of all people, decided to do a response to him. And he made some points in there that I thought were erroneous, and perhaps there just wasn't the data known there or something. I don't know. But I felt the need to correct PZ because he clearly has this image that because atheists in general have left religion for good, they must therefore adopt a new philosophical background that is focused upon the social justice trifecta of the new religious ideology. Complete with original sin, aka the straight white male, or the unconscious bias. It depends on which flavor you want to go down, but apparently, they have an original sin, along with all the do's and don'ts of a religion, the in and out grouping of religion. You're either one of us or against us, and the dogmatic approach that they've aligned with a more militant group, just like, I don't know, Islam, where they have a militant group that's not willing to basically beat the shit out of people that they disagree with. So let's go through PZ's little response. I had a few things I wanted to take out of it and kind of comment on, so let's look at it.
Oh no, Noel Plum has made a long response video. Is this what YouTube is? It's just this churning gyre of responses to responses to responses and making them to Noel Plum?
Well, PZ, you may not be familiar with an old format of the same thing. It was called letter writing, and it was done prior to telecommunications. And then there was the blog posting or the chat messages, which was in the same kind of frequency where it was one person talking and then another person talking. It's not at the speed of a face-to-face dialogue or debate or conversation, but it's extremely efficient because not only can you see the person talking, you can interpret what they're saying, you actually have the body language behind what they're saying, so you can have further interpretation of their language and communications, unlike text messaging or text communications, or even Twitter for that matter, where all you get is the text and you get zero voice reflection, zero body language, and zero reflection on what they're saying, no eye contact. You pretty much have to take it on the words themselves, which is why the common thread is that sarcasm is lost on the internet because no one can understand tell when somebody's being sarcastic or they're being serious. In your case, I can see that you're already starting with a case of malice. I see it in your face right now, actually. You're looking at the camera going, this is pathetic, this is sad. Is this really what YouTube's come to, that I have to take the time out of your busy day to respond to another video? As if you didn't want to have the conversation in the first place. But this is where I'll applaud you. Good for having that conversation, at least.
I'm in hell, aren't I?
Yes, especially because you probably believe in a hell.
Once again, he's hung up on my brief comments on his supervillain cartoon. What horrible things did I say about it? I said it was a wonderful illustration. I was amused by it, but that it's a bit over the top.
Actually, I don't care about this. Continue, please. Let's skip to the part where I do care.
So now he has to go on and on defending it. Okay, Noel, I accept it. Caricaturing your critics as supervillains is just something that's very, very important to you, and you have to do it. The bulk of the video is his irritation at something I said. I said that atheism is more than simply denying the existence of God. Everyone who is an atheist must have some other motivation behind it.
And this is where I'm going to stop you. No, they do not. There was a study that was done in the 90s. It's kind of old, but it's been repeated, so we know that it's generalizable. It's know that it's repeatable. We know that it's fact. And it's the, you know what? In fact, I'll show you. Here's the study. Amazing conversions. Why some people leave or some people turn to faith and other people abandon religion altogether. Bob Altmaier and Bruce Hunsberger did this study. It was up in Canada, and they found that those that went from extreme religious conditions. Let's put this into context of somebody you probably know and agree with on most of their politics, except for you and your happy trio, or have you labeled him not hard enough on the people that you hate the most, therefore he must be a rape apologist or whatever the fuck you guys call everybody nowadays. But let's frame it into somebody that you know. Matt Dillahunty used to be a preacher, or at least he was going to seminary to become a priest. He was definitely dedicated to the cloth, believed in God, Jesus, and the whole 9 yards, to the 10th degree. You could call him the most devout of devout Christians. There's other examples, but let's use him because he's the most prominent and well-known atheist who's a loudmouth and isn't afraid to put Christians in their place. He has a very brash and forward method of taking on your average person, but he's also very good at debate as well, which is something I like about him. I just don't like his social justice aspect, which I made a video on recently, but I digress. In this book, it demonstrates through studies that have been conducted over 2,000 students, so it's very generalizable. It was very quantified and qualified. It was a mixed methods research study, and they found that those that went from extreme religion to atheist had a conversion process of 2 years. During that conversion process, it was not a simple thing. It was a, what would you call it, a spiritual journey, as it were. They were questioning their religion, nothing else but their religion, their belief in God and a deity. Now, you seem to think that because a lot of Christianity centers its morality around the belief of God and Jesus and whatever else, that this one question must therefore be tied to the rest of their personal identity, and therefore they must develop a brand new framework to which to work under their moral system without a God. This is not true. It's been studied inside and out, up and down, 10 ways to Sunday, if you want to put it that way. And there's plenty of evidence to demonstrate otherwise. What happens is they go through their moral framework, which they keep well established, found out that most of that moral framework is found in other religions across the country. They don't have to change their opinions on morality. They don't have to change their views on birth control, pro-life, pro-abortion, murder, death sentence, killing people, rape, incest, and all the other criminal, disgusting, implorable, immoral acts that you can possibly think of, because they decided there is no God. I hope I made that abundantly clear to you, because that was the one contention I had in this video that really irritated the shit out of me. They went through 2 years of redefining their core belief in the supernatural, finding out that the supernatural does not exist, and it takes 2 years to come out of believing and actually telling people that they don't believe. 2-year process. Now, the opposite direction, going from relative atheist to full-on believer, almost instantaneous. What it's usually associated with is alienation or lack of friends, no social circle, social network. There's depression that's usually tied into it. Traumatic events often trigger the belief in faith or religious beliefs in general, and they'll turn to religion shortly thereafter. Within the frame of a few months. It's almost instantaneous compared to 2 years on a journey to leave religion. Now, I made this entire point to state that no, you don't have to replace your entire belief system when you become an atheist, because all the atheist claim is there is no God. That does not tie into anything based on morality, based on ethics, based on human decency, treatment, philosophy, science, you name it. In fact, it's a good thing that you bring this up a little bit later, and I'll address it when we see it. But let's continue for now.
He objects and then he misses the point by a million miles. He explains that we North American atheists all have this idea that you can only become an atheist by taking some kind of spiritual journey, that everyone's starting point is a very religious one and you must have had some journey of deliverance from religion. Wait, what? I certainly never said anything of the kind. I grew up in a secular household. My father never went to church, and my mother very rarely, and we didn't talk about religious stuff at home. We kids attended Sunday school and church services for a while, but I think it was only because there were 6 of us, and shooing us off on a Sunday morning gave them a moment's peace. But I never believed in God. I never had this journey Plum is speaking of. I certainly don't think it's an atheist requirement. So the whole central part of his video is this weirdly inappropriate tut-tutting me for something I never said and don't believe.
And I'm going to stop you there and point back to this study yet again. Look at the demographics of the United States. Atheism is not the default position. Protestant Catholicism and some other form of Christianity is. If you live in the Western Hemisphere as I do, then you would know this. In fact, I grew up in Utah where 90% of the entire frickin' state is Mormon. It is the default position, the norm position within the United States and the Western Hemisphere. So that was pretty much his point, that the UK and the other areas over there are largely atheist or irreligious, except for certain European areas that still have issues. But even like the Scandinavian countries, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, whatnot, they're mostly secular, if not atheist. There's a number of countries all the way down the aisle that are largely atheist. So it's a phenomenon unique to us where religion is still very prominent in a society such as ours. We live in a society. And that's the way it is. Now, you and I actually share a common thread here. I was too also brought up completely atheist, not believing in any religion or deity, but I think the motivations to go to Sunday school were slightly different, because in Utah, if you didn't attend the Mormon church and at least attempt to fit in, you didn't fit in, and you ended up being bullied, being extradited from all school activities. You wouldn't get a date. You would be ostracized, as it were, because basically if you didn't go to church and you weren't a good Mormon, you obviously did drugs, you were into smoking and drinking and fornication and all that other shit because you weren't a Mormon. Got firsthand experience of that, and yeah, it kind of sucked being a Mormon run state and one of the few atheists there. It really is kind of rough. So I had that kind of experience. You may or may not have, but at least we share that common thread that no, we didn't have this spiritual journey or experience, but a large percentage of the people that have come out as atheists, especially today, in the Western Hemisphere, were in fact religious. Matt Dillahunty being a very good example, Aaron Ra being another good example, and then there's a few others that I could name that were once religious, heavily religious, and now are not. We, PZ, are the exception to the rule.
To make it even stranger, note that what I said was that an atheist has other motivations behind our disbelief than just because.
Incorrect. Atheism is a claim to the position of is there a God or not, period. Your other motivations that may surround atheism, such as belief in evolution or whatnot, is a reconciliation of facts, a foundation, if you will, of our position on atheism and why it's the rational position. It's a build-up of relevant terminology, facts, and data within our sphere, mind you. Granted, we're the correct sphere compared to the religious sphere where they got intelligent design and other bullshit. But our position is grounded in fact and evidence, which is why the scientific method also aligns to us, which you get to in a minute. But that's not the motivation. It may be one of the methods that we come to out of religion, but it is not a motivating force, as you just put it. It's not a driver to atheism. In fact, many of the people that are intelligent design advocates and flat earthers think that their scientific method and design proves the existence of God. There's plenty of people that try to argue a scientific method to proving God as well. You should know this, being one of the people that used to argue against them until you were ousted for being a social justice warrior, essentially.
So what does Plum do? He explains how his father was a wonderful man who taught him how to think, and that you should address the question of God as you would any other question, and to keep an open mind and decide for yourself. Whoosh! Look at the point sailing right by him.
Yeah, I just watched the point sail right by you. Twice now. Could you kindly pretend to not be so arrogant as to not know what another person is saying? Because now you have two people trying to explain it to you.
Open-mindedness, questioning, critical thinking, a family member who sets an example. Yep, those are prior motivations.
No, they are not prior motivations. The primary motivation was, or is, for most people to go from religion to nothing, no religion, is a notice, a concerning driving fact that something's wrong, something's off. This claim to God, the claim to all this other stuff, doesn't align with the way the world works. Why is that? Then they may come across a parent that he's either motivating or enforcing to this, or that they may come across evidence that supports their new position that there is no God. But no, these are not motivating factors. The original motivation to people leaving a religion is something's off here. Something's wrong. Something's not right. Nothing has to do with anybody teaching anyone critical thinking, logic, and social skills and all that fun stuff, and that leading to atheism. Granted, it can. I'll give you that. But that's not a motivator for atheism. There's plenty of people that think they're right and think that they're the critical thinkers and promote critical thinking. In fact, I can give you an example in Utah where they would always tell you that at 8 years old, they let them make their own decisions to whether or not they should join the church. And prior to that, they teach them that they should have an open mind and always question. If they have any questions, just pray. You know, God will give you the answers. You know, if we're right or wrong, I can't tell you that. Just pray, honey, and they'll find out. They're reinforcing their biased belief through prayer. And we all know where that leads.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Those are not an absence of values. Those are concrete, distinct, important values.
Yes, they are values, but they're not motivators.
He's so hung up on his wrong-headed idea that I'm talking about a spiritual journey, something I never had to do either, that he doesn't realize he takes a lot of positive values for granted.
I think that because you have never had to experience this, you take that as anecdotal evidence that the road to atheism has nothing to do with it, when in fact it does. I recommend you read this book, PZ. I really do.
It's also bizarre because apparently I was raised in a European household, because his father sounds a lot like mine.
And now you're just going down your sophist remarks because you think you're a wise ass and catering to your audience. Please stop.
To make it even more amusing, a bunch of his minions scurried over to my channel to tell me that I'm wrong. Atheism is just an absence of belief. And to prove it, they all tell me their personal life histories that led to their atheism. It was beginning to sound like the Blue Angels doing a flyover. But back to Plum.
His minions? His minions. Okay. Well, I'm not one of his minions. And I'm telling you that you're incorrect. Based on evidence, based on studies, based on quantifiable and qualifiable fact, you are incorrect. Your anecdotal evidence is not evidence that you are correct. So please, try to become enlightened.
What was he saying? Oh yes, he accuses SJWs of building atheism into something it isn't.
You did. You hijacked a bunch of things that were atheism, called it atheism plus, something that you had said a few times that you're not a part of, and pretty much turned the biggest atheist conference that has ever become into a shit show.
As an example, he talks about classic car collectors and firefighters and British bicycling and declares that they aren't about sexual assault or gender politics or patriarchy theory, so why must atheism be? How can we justify expanding the remit of atheism? Good question. I'll note that those other groupings of people have specific goals, collecting things or putting out fires or riding bicycles, and they're all well understood and represent shared interests. But what exactly is the remit of atheism? Plum and his acolytes are fine about saying certain things aren't allowed in atheism. No feminism, none of this Black Lives Matter stuff. How dare you expect atheists to be social activists? But they don't say what it's supposed to be about.
Yeah, we do. And you ignore it and reject that claim. Atheism is the lack of belief in the existence of a god or gods. Period. Whether you want to embrace social justice or not is irrelevant of the fact that atheism is a belief of no gods. Or rather, the rejection of the null is what I like to call it, the null hypothesis position that you cannot prove that there is a God, therefore the null must exist and remain, which is there is no God.
You can't complain about mission creep if you can't articulate what the mission is.
There is no mission. The main, I guess, if you want to give it a mission, let's play with this entertaining little thought. If you want to give it a mission, the sole purpose and mission of atheism is to have others stop believing in false information regarding a deity.
But I can. Atheism is a philosophical statement about the nature of the universe.
No, it is not. Atheism is not a philosophical statement about anything. Atheism is the default position there are no God or gods.
That's pretty much impossible to argue with.
You're right, because it's a load of shit what you're talking about.
When someone says the claims of the religion are ridiculous, unbelievable, counterfactual, they are making an implicit expression about how they understand the world to work. If you are unaware of your own conceptual model of the universe and culture, then as I said before, you aren't thinking very deeply, and you're failing to question your own assumptions.
That is incorrect. I believe that you're failing to conform or question your own assumptions based upon the evidence that I've just presented to you, the evidence that's been presented to you by Noel, and evidence presented to you by other atheists. In fact, all the ones that you said were the minions that came over to your channel to troll you in your comment section. By the way, good on you for leaving that comment section open. There's a couple other YouTubers that are in your circle of friends that are too much of a coward to do the same.
This is why science is such a natural fit with atheism. It's a method for exploring the nature of the universe.
On this, I think we agree. Science, in general, the scientific method per se, is a very good fit for atheism because, as I've stated in the evidence presented in the book, mind you, it is the method by which people usually use to determine that there is no gods.
So of course it should be part of the discipline of atheism. But you know what else is part of the existing remit of atheism? All of these things.
Biology, yes, because we talk about evolution nonstop with every dumbass that talks about intelligent design. Constantly. The ignorance around evolution is staggering, especially in this country, as you should well know, and we constantly have to discuss it. Chemistry, that relates to abiogenesis in particular, and in my opinion, along with embryology, which is actually an argument for pro-life, sort of, although I'm pro-choice, so it doesn't, yeah, it's weird the way I think about it. Anyways, chemistry is also associated with neuroscience, so yes. Physics is obvious reference to the way the world works, the sun revolving around the universe, we revolve around the sun, so on and so forth. The earth is not flat, all that kind of fun stuff that's religiously associated. Philosophy, yes, I just gave you philosophical arguments that are usually presented by the religious, and their counter arguments usually are pertained by the atheist community to be philosophical in nature, usually focusing on epistemological approaches to their philosophical arguments. Sociology, absolutely, because religion is a social construct. As much as I love that terminology, it is created by humans. It does not exist in a natural form. It was invented by us. It exists because of us. Psychology is a very big thing because of the things that religion does to the mind. I've talked to, helped, and donate some of my time to helping people through leaving a religion through a crisis hotline. And generally, I just talk to them online as well. I've actually talked to a trans person that's over on Twitter and helped him with his feelings regarding Islam. Unfortunately, he can't be out because he'd probably be dead. But let's just say that he feels a hell of a lot better than he did, thanks to psychology. Sexuality, yes and no. I mean, there's a lot of shortcomings when it comes to sexuality and religion. Obviously, they hate the idea of having sex. So the opposite tends to be true with atheism. Art, not so much, actually. There is art relating to atheism for some reason because people like to express their contentment, their happiness with not believing in a God. And there's no problem with that because the same is true for those that want to express their opinion that God exists. And man, there's so many songs that are actually kind of beautiful. There's art everywhere with religion and without. Literature's the same way. History is because we focus on a literal history and don't take the Bible as truth, so I can see that one. Economics, not so much, actually. There is some things when it comes to politics and economics when we're saying that we want to tax churches and not let them get away tax-free. Keep your money out of tax, or keep your hands out of the tax money. Political, I could see that too, because we do have the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and they rail against religious people putting up Ten Commandments stuff and stuff like that, trying to impose religion upon others. We had the crazy dumbass lady that tried to prevent gay people from getting married in her county because she decided God told her to, even though she's a raging hypocrite. Law's the same way. Theology, obviously. I mean, that's a dumb one to put up there. We're railing against theology of all forms. And then communications, no. That, all forms of communications, atheism has nothing to do with communications. Communications is a broad-scoped field, and none of it has to do with belief or disbelief in a god or gods. Absolutely none. It's an irrelevant thing. I don't know why you even put that up there. It's pointless.
I have seen every one of them discussed at atheist meetings. So where do you get off insisting that subjects like the relationship of the sexes, gender politics, and patriarchy theory are not part of the remit of atheism?
I can tell you this right now, and this is where I kind of agree with Noel on this as well, although he didn't really cover it, but patriarchy theory is bogus. It is a boogeyman. It is the devil of intersectional feminism. It is bullshit. It does exist in Arabic countries, but because of intersectional feminism, you defend Islam, weirdly enough, but usually to say you defend Muslims, not Islam. So you're still against the whole Islamic beliefs, but you're going to protect and fight for them even though they want you dead. Quran 8:12, in case you're wondering where that's at. No. Those aren't relevant to atheism. Those are related to these that you have on the list here, actually. Feminism, in my opinion, arguably backed up by the, if you want to loosely call it, academic writings in feminist journals, denies evolution. In fact, I've seen in a psychological journal that they outright wanted a, how do they put it? They wanted an alternative hypothesis to the claim that psychology is evolved. Evolutionary psychology is bullshit. We need an alternative hypothesis, an alternative theory. In jumps in critical race theory or critical theory, and feminist theory, critical feminist theory, and a number of others that are not theories, actually. They're airbrushed opinions based on a black and white dichotomical thinking that's erroneous to its core. But no, that they really have nothing to do with atheism either. It's just that you want us to care and think about these because you want them to be about atheism. Hey, look, we left one religion and we joined this other cult. It's really cool and we care a lot about everybody, but if you're in the out group and think that you're wrong, we will try to get you fired from your job. We will show up with Antifa and beat the shit out of you while you're trying to give a conference. We will get you banned on Twitter because you misgendered somebody that calls himself a man already. Yeah, there's a reason why social justice and the warriors thereof are railed against so heavily, and it has nothing to do with atheism. It has everything to do with the behaviors of those that think they're right and morally just to impose their views upon us. See, we left religion. We left religion, or we were already out of religion from my perspective. And I refuse to have somebody else tell me what I can and cannot say, or can or cannot do. Religion tries to do that often. So why do you think an atheist, somebody that has left religion, somebody that found it too oppressive, that didn't like it the way they treated women, that felt it that, the Mormons thinking that God cursed black people, why would we leave backwards and stupid thinking like that to join another cult that tells you that straight white males are the devil, the patriarchy is a real thing, and it oppresses all women of all ethnic minorities and all black, brown, any other minority that isn't white? And why we should listen to those people and believe, just have faith, and not question something that we fundamentally did to get out of religion in the first place. So the last bit of this, there's like 53 seconds left. I'm not going to cover the rest of it. I covered the points that I wanted. This is a little bit longer than I wanted it to be. I hope you enjoy. Noel, if you want to chime off, I'm going to try and tag you in this one, see if you respond, do you have anything to share. Maybe I missed a point that you're trying to make. Maybe I articulated something that I wasn't expecting. Let me know. Hit me down in the comments. You can DM me if you'd like. I actually have no idea how to reach you, to be honest. But it would be interesting. And PZ, if you actually do end up watching this, I very much welcome you to try and step in and try to convince me how social justice in general is a force for good and has anything to do with the belief that there is no God, or the non-belief that there is a God, or the no belief in a God. However you want to phrase that opinion, or that position, rather. You try and convince me how atheism has anything to do with any of that, and I might take you seriously. But right now, with your mannerisms and you're reading a script, obviously, you had a prepared notes, your behavior is very condescending. You think you're in the right, but you negated the position whatsoever and won't even entertain the idea because you think it's wrong. I've entertained your position, and I can see where it's wrong. I've very much capable of thinking from the other side of the fence, unlike some other people. So, why don't you try doing the same? Thank you.
I will always be most grateful. I must leave now.